we appreciate you being a guest. Our website is joeingramlaw.com. Our phone number is 205-335-2640. As always, we do take cases from Huntsville to Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Montgomery, Dothan, and even the Mobile area. If you have questions, do submit those to us, and we'll get back to you off the air with those questions. So, it's been a while since we've done a podcast, and it's certainly been a while since we've talked about any criminal issues. And I received some federal statistics this week about people that are incarcerated in federal prison, and I thought that would be a good topic for those that are interested in federal criminal cases. And so this is statistics as of January 2023. Just some quick facts about people that are in federal prison. Currently, as of January, there are 158,949 people incarcerated in federal custody. 158,949 people as of January 2023. The average minimum for offenders in federal prison was 165 months. Now, that's the average. That doesn't mean that everybody got that. There are some people below that, and there's some people above that. But that came out to be the average length of punishment for people incarcerated in federal prison, 165 months. 97.8% were also sentenced to serve a term of supervision after release from prison. Supervised release, sort of like probation. So that's a given, 97.8%. I would like to know, more importantly, about the 3% people that got out of probation after they got out of jail. That's very unusual. 61.9% were convicted of an offense carrying, now this is interesting, a mandatory minimum penalty. Of those offenders, 23% were relieved of that penalty. So 61% were convicted of a case that had a mandatory minimum sentence, such as in a drug case. 1.3% received a sentence reduction under Rule 35. That's where you come back later, you maybe cooperate, testify in a case, and the government agrees to tell the court to give you a lower sentence. So that number is a little low. You would like to see that higher as a practicing criminal defense lawyer. So that's interesting to see. Only 1% of people have got a reduced sentence under a Rule 35. Okay. Now, we've talked about guideline ranges in federal cases in a previous podcast, so I'm not going to go back and rehash that tonight. But just for our listeners out there, the guidelines are no longer mandatory under the famous case of Booker, United States versus Booker, Booker. 97.8% of offenders in federal prison were sentenced after the Booker decision, which changed the guidelines from mandatory to advisory. The guidelines are no longer mandatory. The judges have a little bit more discretion in determining and rationing sentences out to people charged in federal court. Of the 65.9% of offenders sentenced under the guideline manual, now we're getting into some real statistics here. Of the 65.9% of offenders sentenced under the guideline manual, 70.3% were sentenced within the guideline range. So 70%, essentially, the judge went within the guideline range. 17.4% received a substantial assistance departure. That might be where they cooperated against a co-defendant, offered information, testified in court, maybe got a departure due to their age, first-time offender, something like that. But 17% received a substantial assistance departure. Of those 17% that got a substantial assistance departure, the average reduction is 36%. So if you got a downward departure from the guidelines, almost a third of you, a little over a third, got a good departure. 4% received an early disposition program departure. Those are usually first-time offenders. Their average sentence reduction was 43%. There you go. Of people sentenced under the guideline range, 34% received a variance. So you might receive a variance if you have a health issue, elderly, infirmed, I don't know, whatever your lawyer's creative enough to come up with might help you with your sentence. 89% received a downward variance. Their average sentence reduction was 26%. The average sentence of people sentenced in the guidelines was 60%. So 60% of all people sentenced as of, December 22, January 23, were sentenced within the guideline range, 60%. So that's just some quick facts about sentences in federal court. I always find that interesting because here in Alabama, we think the judges are pretty tough sentencing in federal court. I can assure you the judges in Montgomery are tougher, and the judges in Georgia are even more severe in punishment. Now, you go to cases, you go to states such as California, out west, Washington, Oregon, California, those judges tend not to be as severe. However, there is the exception, which is the state of Arizona, which is very tough on federal sentencing. So that's just some quick statistics about federal cases sentencing. As always, joeingramlaw.com, 205-335-2640. We do appreciate you being a guest. If we can help you, please let us know. As we always say, take care of yourself and each other, and have a good night. No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.